Hello, it's Mr. Volkman, ready for another flipped video lesson. Looking now at, for Washington State History, Chapter 3, Lesson 1A. For this video, we're looking at how people moved west and why they moved. Here below we have a rough sketch map of the Oregon Trail, and that's what we're focusing on here. The Oregon Trail in the early to mid part of the 1800s. Here we go. Heading west. So the easy part of the Oregon Trail was the flat plains, which would have been the first part of the Oregon Trail. And if you rewind the video, you can take a look at the map, even though it's not a physical map. You can kind of see where the Midwest states are. It's, again, very flat, plain type area. The difficult parts, first off, would have been the wide rivers, having to cross those, as seen in the picture here of a modern day representation of that. The weather could easily change, lightning storms. Depending when you got to the mountains, you could have blizzards. Also, the travel time. It took about 6 months to get from Independence, Missouri to the Willamette Valley or wherever you wanted to go in the Oregon country. That's a long time. It's a lot of supplies you have to pack for and prepare for. Also, the mountain pass could be very treacherous. You had to time your journey just right so that you hit the mountain pass before the winter. Otherwise, you had to wait to cross through the mountains. Most people, when they finally got to Oregon country, settled near Fort Vancouver. And if we remember, Dr. McLaughlin was there. Or they settled in Oregon City. Some items they took with them were ox, cows, chickens, and goats. And if we take a look at these pictures here, you can again see some other difficulties they may have had. Also, thinking back to the Oregon Trail game that we played, what were some of the difficulties in that game? Think about that for a second. Elijah White. We don't have a lot on the slide here. However, even though there's not a lot, he was a pretty important man. He was a former missionary. He was a Methodist missionary. And he actually was someone that worked with Jason Lee. Is that a name that sounds familiar to you at all? He left because of his frustration with Mr. Lee back to the East Coast. He ended up becoming an Indian agent. And on his way back to the Oregon country, he took with him about 100 to 125 men, women, and children on this trail, which later became the Oregon Trail. And they went from Independence, Missouri to the Willamette Valley. I encourage you to do some more research on this man if you have a moment or if you're interested in him, because he was a very important person. So, why would people go to the Oregon country? Why would they take 6 months on a very dangerous journey? First off, new country. No one had ever been here before. Well, not no one. Not a lot of people had. Mainly like trappers and traders. Just the pure adventure of it. I mean, this was a huge journey, 2,000 some odd miles, 6 months, going through treacherous land. New business. Just look at McLaughlin and the Hudson Bay Company. The new business that could be got. It could be doctors, people opening stores for supplies, farms. A healthier climate. People thought back then that the air out in Oregon country could make you better. And if you read a lot of journals, you'll see that people left the Midwest and the East Coast because they thought it would make them healthier. Lastly, people are escaping slavery. There's a gentleman that you're going to read about in following classes and in the next flip video who was a former slave who escaped and wanted freedom. And he ended up creating a huge farm that helped a lot of people in this area. Some thoughts, some things I want you to think about. And I'm going to let Mr. Mint do this while I take a break. Thanks, Mr. Volkman. So, here's some thoughts. Do you see any similarities between why people left Europe for the New World and why people went on the Oregon Trail to come to the Oregon Territory or Oregon country? A second question is, if there are any similarities, what do these similarities tell us about people in general? Do people change at all? Do we have the same motivations throughout the years and the centuries? So please pause this flip video, and I'd like you to think about these two questions for a moment. Please, pause the video, because this is an educational film, and you should be allowed and able to pause it. Thank you, Mr. Mint. All right, let's go on here to the next slide, which would be the last slide. The destination. So once people got to Oregon Territory, some people knew exactly where they wanted to go. Other people probably did not. A lot of people stopped at the Whitman place before, obviously, the massacre and would have got directions. A lot of people went to Fort Vancouver, where they met up with the Hudson Bay Company and McLaughlin. And McLaughlin, sneaky, told people to settle south of the Columbia River. I wonder why. Why would he not want people to settle north of the Columbia by the Puget Sound area? What possibly could make him want to do that? I'm not going to tell you the answer. I want you to think about it. However, settlers listened for a little bit. However, the idea of having these deep sea ports in the Puget Sound to have American ships come in to give supplies was calling people's names, so they stopped listening to McLaughlin. Also, people weren't fond of the fact that McLaughlin and the Hudson Bay Company pretty much had a monopoly. They controlled everything, politics, economics, and they were British. So right there, you had this British-American problem going on that culminated in some problems that we will talk more about as Chapter 3 goes on. Anyways, thank you for listening through this video. There will be no homework questions tonight. You will get those homework questions. Actually, take that back. There will be some homework questions tonight. There'll be no flipped assessment tomorrow in class. Also, I'm going to post on Edmodo 2 links of a website that shows what it would have been like to be on the Oregon Trail. And it talks a little bit about things that they did to prepare for. Now, this website, you have to pay to get to watch all the videos, in their entirety. So you'll probably get to watch only a couple minutes for each video. But I encourage you, go to Edmodo, click on the links, you'll get about 2 minutes worth of video. Anyways, thank you. And if you need to, rewatch the video to fill in your outline notes, and the outline notes will be posted on Edmodo as well. Thank you.